What's good, everyone, and welcome back to Kaya's Commentary. And if you're new here, welcome to Kaya's Commentary. This is a podcast that offers commentary on pop culture topics, real world issues, and anything in between. This is episode 6 of my 13-part series entitled Picture This, where I look at Black, Indigenous people of color representation in media of old and how that affects their presence in the science fiction and fantasy genres of today. In episode 5, we covered race and its effects on Asian communities, and today we're looking at race and its effects on Arab communities. As stated in prior episodes, this series contains the use of out-of-date language. Now, I feel it's important to not censor myself because I don't feel that I can properly talk about the stereotypes, their effects, and their official names from a historical context without using certain words. So, viewer discretion is advised. Also, while I strive to be as accurate as possible, these are meant to be brief introductions. People dedicate their whole careers to studying race and culture and the intersectionality between the two. Even with my BA in theater arts and my MA in mass comm, arguably two research-heavy degrees, I'm certainly not going to be able to tackle everything in the 30 to 45 minutes that I hope these videos at least somewhat round out to. That said, I will do my best to make this as informational, engaging, and entertaining as possible. With that, let's get into it. So, in 1897, Thomas Edison does a short film featuring an Arab woman, more than likely a whitewashing of the culture, doing a Fatima dance. This is the first film to use and sensationalize the belly dancing stereotype. The documentary Real Bad Arabs introduces us to the myth of Arabland, which is basically a mythical theme park. The desert areas in which they all live around are threatening, dangerous places. Every now and then there will be a palm tree shading an oasis. The palaces, which are all heavily guarded fortresses from the outside, have an assortment of booby traps and dungeons for trespassers on the inside. Where the royals reside, however, is a beautiful palace where they and their harem of women reside. Despite the sultan having a harem, every now and then he'll still lust after the white woman because their beauty far outweighs anything that is homegrown. We're beginning to see this with several different minority groups now, that white women, and it goes back to that notion of being closer to whiteness and European makes you more attractive and refined, so you naturally gravitate towards that. Outside of the palace in the village, there are snake charmers, peddlers selling flying carpets, and always a sword fighter too. There are also heavy implications of Muslim culture, as all Arab communities are portrayed as Muslim, which of course is not the case because no, not all Arabs are Muslims and not all Muslims are Arabs. We see the myth of Arabland in films like Harum Shakrim in 1956, where a line is included, quote, when you cross the mountains of the moons into our country, you'll be stepping back 2,000 years, end quote. So that fantasization of Arab land and it being mystical and exotic. Stereotypes of Asian men are that they are wealthy, dishonest, incompetent, ruthless, violent, mad doctors, they're irrational, and obsessed with blonde-haired women. And I say that wearing this, and I didn't think about that, so that was not intentional. We see this through the years in films like the 1940 cartoon Ali Baba, the Dog of the Desert, Exodus in 1960s, which shows the Palestinian people are either invisible or linked with Nazism. Samson Against the Sheikh in 1962, which portrays them as lusting after white women. Arab women, however, are passive, voiceless, faceless. They're bundles in black. We see this as late as um, the mummy, so they are covered in black, head to toe, can hardly see anything, just their eyes. And in later films, that is used as another form to make them more mysterious and exotic. They have all this heavy eyeshadow and makeup on, and it's the only thing you see, and they're looking exotically at you. I don't know if I just made that word up, but um, so they're to be seen, and they're hardly to be seen, and certainly not to be heard. And in some cases, they are in need of saving by the Western hero, or they're sexually provocative and scantily clad belly dancers and part of a harem. So these stereotypes can also be found in the same movies that I just listed above. Portrayal of Arab communities have never really been great, but increased U.S. conflict with the Middle East begins to push harder on these stereotypes while rewriting others. You can think of the major stereotypes about them as the three Bs, the belly dancer, the billionaire, and the bomber. A belly dancer in earlier images is more oriental and exotic, but now the Arab woman is no longer an exotic sex object, which, cool, fine, but instead, she is a bomber, a terrorist, a veiled woman in the background. three conflicts in particular that began to solidify Arab communities as terrorists are Islam's assault on Palestine and the Palestinian people, which the American government has supported for decades, the Arab oil embargo, which saw gas prices rise in the US, and the Iranian Revolution in the 1970s, when Iranian students took American hostage for more than a year in response to US meddling over oil. Now, America really begins to lean into the stereotype of the billionaire and the bomber, as well as a fourth stereotype, the buffoon. Happy Hooker Goes to Washington in 1977 shows a white woman recalling being a victim to circumcised dogs, but the Arab presenting person that she's eating with laughs it off, saying, "Dogs are better than sheep. I would know. They're less hairy." It's supposed to be funny. The film Network in 1976 includes a line that goes, quote, "The Arabs have taken billions of dollars out of this country and must put it back," end quote. Raiders of the Lost Ark in 1981 shows an Arab buffoonishly swinging a sword only to be shot by the white protagonist. I find that a little ironic because today, and maybe it's still over the top today, but it would be looked at as more cool. You're doing all these tricks with all these swords and whatnot. You're showcasing your skill. But in this era, the protagonist is like, "Oh, you doing all that? Okay, cool. Well, guess what? I win." So it's shown as buffoonish. Um, Back to the Future of 1985 includes a completely unrelated and unnecessary scene of Arabs with machine guns trying to kill the protagonist, but are too inept. And I think they drive away, and then we don't see them again for that film. Jewel of the Nile in 1985 portrays the lecherous Arab who tricks the white woman character to coming to Arab land and then imprisons her there. Death Before Dishonor in 1987 emphasizes Arab women as bombers. Even cartoons are a great way to perpetuate stereotypes, getting into the minds of young, impressionable children who possibly could grow up and, think like that, especially if they have no interaction with people. But even as young children, drawing these kind of cartoons and singing these songs, you know, you shape young minds, right? So if you don't tell them that there's something wrong with Disney's Aladdin and its portrayal of Arab land, they're going to believe that there's nothing wrong with it. So, speaking of Disney's Aladdin, it showcases Arabland, cutthroat thieves, Arabs wearing Roman headdresses, and other stereotypes. In the opening song, Arabian Nights, a line is as follows, where they cut off your ear if they don't like your face. It's barbaric, but hey, it's home. After intervention from the Arab American anti-discrimination community, the line was changed to where it's flat and immense and the heat is intense. It's barbaric, but hey, it's home. You're almost there. You're so close. You're almost there and you're so close. Not sure how much of an improvement that was. True Lies of 1994 shows the Arab terrorists as dangerous but incompetent. So there's a scene where they are threatening the American people. When we turn this machine on with this key, you guys are gonna get it. And the reporter that he's talking to is like, "Oh, what key? What key? That key." And he looks and there's no key. Who took the key? Which something else to point out is the irony of you want me to take them seriously, but then you portray them this way. You want me to take them seriously as dangerous terrorists while also showing that they are incompetent and can't do it. See how that irony is working against each other? Father of the Bride Part 2 in 1995 also offers an unnecessary scene of non-Arab actor Eugene Levy playing a comedically, financially sleazy Arab who shouts gibberish at his wife when she tries to speak, much like Back to the Future. Completely unnecessary. Now, with Back to the Future, it was wholly unnecessary. You didn't see them again after that. With this film, you see him throughout the film, but it's still a very unnecessary character. There was in the first one no need for it. I think Eugene Levy is also in the first one, but as a different character, there was no need for him to be this character in this film. So these films stereotyping Arab communities as either comedically buffoonish, sexually provocative or starved, or terrorists all emphasize Arabs as people as a whole, obsessed with America and the Western world in one way or another. But we never see Arab communities such as the Palestinians who suffer under occupation due to America's obsession with any possible oil in those lands. And Western media would tell you that the lack of empathy towards Arab communities is fine because the only good Arab is a dead Arab. Sound familiar? When studios begin to collaborate with the Department of Defense, films begin to portray Arabs as people not just interested in the land, but as burn the flag, death to Americans terrorists. They're not just after your land, but your life too. They just want to kill you because you are an American. One of the most damning war propaganda films would be the 2000 film Rules of Engagement. In the film, Marines are called to evacuate American employees in Yemen, but somehow end up firing on a crowd below, killing and wounding Yemen women and children. When they are called to answer for their actions, we are to believe that the Yemen civilians were the victims. We see a young Yemen girl missing a leg due to the shooting, but then a tape is found in a makeshift hospital that the young girl was on her way to. And lo and behold, the Yemen civilians fired first, including the children, leading Samuel L. Jackson's character to give the order to waste the MFs. So, this film and others like it justify the unjustifiable slaughter and stereotyping of Arab communities in real life. Dr. Jack Shaheen in Real Bad Arabs poses the question, what must the Arab communities think of American communities to propagate something so ridiculous as a young child spraying armed military members with a handgun? After the events of 9/11, Islamophobia rises and the war in Iraq, however unpopular with the American people now, is justified then by the US government. This further fuels intolerant emotions towards Arabs when they are physically and psychologically tortured in torture encampments, as the documentary shows when US military members are taking photos with naked and abused captives like trophies. The news media, in turn, also begins to stereotype and vilify. In the case of the Oklahoma City bombing of 1995, there was this rush to say that it was a terrorist attack by Middle Easterners, that it was this attempt to kill as many Americans as possible, and that was a clear signature of Arab terrorism. In actuality, the bomber was Timothy McVeigh, a white American with a Catholic upbringing. He was assisted by Terry Nicholas, another white American. Still, the rise of Arab and Muslim American hate crimes since 9/11 has been significant. Films like the 2000 Gladiator shows Arabs as slave traders, particularly of white people. 24 in 2004 contains an episode of an Arab American terrorism um, episode. Sleeper Cell in 2005 also shows terrorisms and terrorists in America and includes the following line, quote, "We are at war with America, period. And we're going to win that war by convincing enough Americans through the spread of fear and security and terror to change their ways. And the best way to teach that lesson is by attacking them where they live, work, and play." End quote. The Islamic Muslim religion as a whole becomes the face of terrorism. It was the terrorist religion, despite the fact that, again, not all Arabs are Muslims and not all Muslims are Arabs, and that's actually not what the Islamic Muslim religion stands for. But as always, there is pushback. Kingdom of Heaven of 2005 is about the Crusades and shows the respects between Muslims and Christian and religious tolerance between the two in a scene when a Muslim Arab prince sees a Christian artifact lying on the floor. He picks it up and places it back as it should be, and according to the documentary Real Bad Arabs, this scene is met with applause in theaters. Siren, also of 2005, shows an Arab prince as one of the few decent Arabs trying to bring peace, which later gets him killed. Also in 2005, Paradise Now, where there are two Palestinian friends who later get recruited to carry out a suicide bombing, but are forced to question their actions by a Palestinian woman. Stand-up comedians like, and okay, names. I'm so sorry for my ignorance, as I really look at my notes. Dean Obeidallah and Ahmed Ahmed also push back on stereotypes. Ahmed, in an attempt of irony, goes in for a casting reading of Terrorist Number 4 and reads his line over the top, much to the director's delight. So he was doing this in an attempt of irony, and it worked for him. So he now makes jokes about that. Arab, Arab filmmakers also making their voices heard as well. In 2025, No Other Land, a Palestinian-Israeli documentary about the destruction in West Bank's occupied Masfa Yatta won the Best Documentary Feature at the Oscars of that year, one of the first, if not the first, Palestinian films to do so. So, out of all the communities that I've spoken of, none want this perfect example that shows that they are above being humans. Far from it, as that strips them of any humanity. These documentaries demonstrate a need to be shown as complex humans with faults that they don't have to be defined by. You can have the faults, but the faults they're not your whole personality, but neither are you above faults. No better or no worse than anyone else. Just human. So I'll stop there, rounding out this look back on BIPOC communities in Western dramas and comedies. If you like this video, be sure to like this video, leave comments down below and let me know what you found interesting about this video. Be respectful, we can have a conversation with one another, but only if we are respectful. Thanks for listening and watching, and stick around for the next episode where we get into BIPOC communities and 3 areas of speculative fiction.